Chicago, the city of broad shoulders, a metropolis of towering steel, deep dish pizza, and a police department with a history as complex and storied as the city itself. Over the last century, the Chicago Police Department has been at the center of some of the nation's most profound conversations about justice, trust, and accountability. But to understand where the city is headed, we have to look back at the moments that shook it to its core. This is the story of how scandals sparked change, and how a city is still working to redefine what it means to protect and serve. Our story begins in 1960, in the Summerdale Police District on the north side. The city was jolted awake by headlines that seemed impossible. It all started with a local burglar named Richard Morrison. When he was caught, he didn't just give up his crew. He pointed his finger directly at the police. Morrison revealed that 8 Chicago police officers were his partners in crime. They weren't just looking the other way. They were active participants, using their official squad cars to haul stolen goods, all while on duty. The officers had a system, robbing businesses they were sworn to protect, and using their police radios to monitor their colleagues. This wasn't just a few bad apples. It was a sophisticated criminal enterprise operating from inside the department. The scandal was so immense, so shocking, that it forced the city into a complete overhaul of its policing structure. It led to the firing of the police superintendent and the creation of a new, more centralized system of internal discipline. The Summerdale scandal became a textbook example of systemic corruption, a stark warning that trust, once broken, is incredibly difficult to repair. The city learned a hard lesson. Without integrity inside the force, there can be no safety on the streets. But as the 60s faded, a darker shadow began to creep over the South Side. From the 1970s through the early 1990s, the area to police headquarters became a place of fear. Under the command of Jon Burge, a decorated detective, a sinister pattern of misconduct took root. This era wasn't defined by theft, but by something far more damaging: the systematic violation of human rights inside interrogation rooms. For 2 decades, Burge and his unit, known as the Midnight Crew, operated with impunity. To secure confessions, dozens of individuals, overwhelmingly black men, were subjected to coercive tactics and extreme physical duress. These were not interviews. They were ordeals designed to break a person's will. Suspects were held for days without access to lawyers, their pleas for help ignored. The methods used were brutal and calculated, leaving scars both seen and unseen. For years, the official narrative was one of closed cases and dangerous criminals brought to justice. But whispers of what was happening inside Area 2 grew louder. Brave individuals, their families, and dedicated lawyers began to fight back, filing lawsuits and speaking out despite the immense risk. The truth took decades to fully surface, buried under a mountain of denials and cover-ups. Finally, the sheer volume of evidence became undeniable. Jon Burge was fired in 1993, but it wasn't until 2010 that he was convicted, not for the abuses themselves, but for perjury. For lying under oath about what he had done. In a historic move, Chicago became the first city in the United States to offer a formal apology and a multi-million-dollar reparations package to the survivors. The city created a fund to provide financial compensation, psychological counseling, and even free college tuition for the victims and their families. Perhaps most importantly, the city mandated that this dark chapter of its history be taught in Chicago public schools, a solemn promise to never forget and never repeat the abuses of Area 2. Fast forward to the digital age. In 2014, another event would once again force Chicago to confront its demons. This time, the evidence wouldn't be a confession from a burglar or decades of testimony. It would be a few minutes of chilling dashcam footage. The incident involved the tragic death of 17-year-old Laquan McDonald. For over a year, the official police narrative held that the teenager had lunged at officers with a knife, justifying the shooting. The public had little reason to doubt the report, but a journalist's Freedom of Information Act request and a subsequent court order forced the city to release the video. What it showed was starkly different from the initial reports. The footage revealed McDonald walking away from officers, not lunging toward them. The release of the video in 2015 sent shockwaves through Chicago and across the country. It ignited massive protests and a profound crisis of faith in the city's leadership. The public outcry was not just about the shooting itself, but about the year-long effort to keep the video from seeing the light of day. The so-called blue wall of silence didn't just crack, it shattered. The scandal led to a complete restructuring of police leadership, including the firing of the police superintendent. Most significantly, it resulted in the conviction of a Chicago police officer for an on-duty shooting, the first of its kind in half a century. The Laquan McDonald case became a turning point, ushering in a new era where digital evidence could hold a power that was once unimaginable, forcing a level of transparency the department had never experienced before. It was a clear signal that in the age of smartphones and body cameras, accountability could no longer be easily swept under the rug. Today, the battle for integrity in Chicago has expanded from the streets to spreadsheets. While the city grapples with its history of misconduct, a new front has opened up, ensuring fiscal accountability. The focus is now on the stewardship of public trust and taxpayer money. Recent investigations by the city's Office of Inspector General have highlighted this modern challenge. The OIG, acting as an independent watchdog, has flagged dozens of city employees, including police officers, for alleged fraud related to federal COVID-19 relief funds. These were programs designed to help small businesses and struggling families during a global crisis. The allegations suggest that some abused their positions to unfairly benefit from these funds. Alongside this, the Inspector General's office has also uncovered significant discrepancies in overtime pay within the department. Audits have revealed patterns of potential abuse, where officers were paid for hours they may not have actually worked, costing taxpayers millions of dollars. This isn't the dramatic corruption of the Summerdale scandal, but it's a critical reminder that accountability extends beyond the use of force. It's about ensuring every dollar is spent ethically and that every employee, from the beat cop to the city hall administrator, is held to the same standard of conduct. In an era of tight budgets and increasing demands for public services, this fight for fiscal integrity is just as crucial to rebuilding public trust. So where does Chicago go from here? The decades of scandal, protest, and hard-won legal battles have led to a pivotal moment. Today, the Chicago Police Department operates under a federal consent decree. Think of it as a legally binding, court-monitored roadmap for reform. It mandates hundreds of specific changes in everything from use-of-force policies and community policing to training and discipline. This isn't just a list of suggestions. It's a set of requirements enforced by a federal judge. The goal is to fundamentally change the culture of the department, moving away from the silence and secrecy of the past and toward a model of transparency and constitutional policing. The path is not easy. Changing a culture that has been entrenched for generations is a monumental task. But across the city, there are signs of progress. Community leaders, activists, and police officials are engaging in difficult conversations, working to build bridges that were once burned. We see a new generation of officers being trained with an emphasis on de-escalation and procedural justice. The journey is long, and the scars of the past run deep. But for the families who fought for decades to bring the truth to light, the goal is clear: to build a system where the shield is a symbol of protection for every single person in every neighborhood. True accountability, as Chicago is learning, isn't a final destination. It's a constant, ongoing commitment to getting it right. The story of the Chicago Police Department is a powerful case study in the struggle for urban reform. How does a major city rebuild trust after a century of challenges? What does true accountability look like in practice? Let's discuss the future of policing and reform in the comments below. I want to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching. If you found this story important, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and follow along as we continue to explore Broken Shield, the Accountability Project.